Again, call to order the meeting of the Plain Township Board of Trustees for Tuesday, March 11th, 2014. Everybody will please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before us, we have our agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections by fellow board members?
I have an addition. Need to add under unfinished business our economic development agreement with Kansas.
Okay. Do we have any additional additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda outside the law director? Okay, the agenda will stand as amended and presented. We have nothing under the sheriff's report. Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to address the sheriff's office with any concerns, comments, or complaints? Okay, that's going to close out the sheriff's report. Nothing under the detective's report. It will take us to unfinished business, and I'm going to turn that over to our administrator, Mrs. Campbell.
Thank you. Item number 1 under unfinished business is a resolution to approve the attached invoice from Abbott Electric. It's for the installation of the underground feed for the Schneider Park sign, not to exceed $2,013. And to authorize payment from Fund 01B02.
Also move on unfinished business number 1.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Geovasis?
Yes.
Mr. Haas?
Yes.
Item number 2, I will turn over to our law director as he has added that on tonight to the agenda.
Thank you. For the three of you,
Thank you.
we had a meeting on the mutual economic development agreement that we're trying to get through. Mr. Geovasis and I went to meet with the folks in the city of Canton. And a couple of things that they wanted to address or change. One was just a wording issue, which is not a big deal. Number 2 was a description of the property, which has changed. They are interested in making it much more inclusive of the township. So there's a big area. If you look, I made a color copy, your very last page. You can see a black kind of pen line drawn, and it would be everything in Plain Township north of that line. Yes. So it's essentially encapsulating most of the township to the north, and that would be the new kind of agreement to agree type area. I will say that with regard to questions, comments, concerns, because the area has been expanded so much, we would have the ability at our public hearing to reduce but not enlarge. That was kind of the problem last time, the area, if you had an issue with it. So what's before you are 2 resolutions. The first one is to rescind the one we did before, because obviously that one's gone by the wayside and that timeline has gone by the wayside. And the second resolution was being to agree to have the public hearing on the new agreement with the new legal description. So agreement number 79 in this ordeal of kind of trying to get it together here. So that's what you have in front of you, 2 resolutions, 1 to rescind the past agreement and 1 to enter into this new agreement for a public hearing and advertise.
Didn't we rescind? How many think we rescinded?
We rescinded the North Canton one.
Okay,
Now the last one we went ahead with the new Canton one. So this is a rescission of the new Canton in order to go forward with the really new Canton.
We added.
Yes, with the added geography. Yes.
I will move adoption of new business number, unfinished business number 2.
Second. Discussion.
With regard to the previous agreement that will hopefully replace next.
Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Haas?
Yes.
Mr. Geovasis?
Yes.
Thank you, and that ends
We
unfinished.
have one more.
Oh, sorry.
It's just two-parter.
Yeah, so we'll make that.
Make that 2A.
2A,
This next one will be 2B.
adoption of
Sorry, 2B.
And I'll, go ahead.
Second, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
And Mr. Geovasis?
Yes. Mr. Williams?
Yes.
And does it say, I'm looking at here, does it include the date of the, yeah, it does include the date of the year?
Yes, we put it at April 17th, 6 o'clock at Township Hall, and the advertisement would need to go out by March 18th. I've got that in the thing for the fiscal office as well. It's got the same way we did it last
So
year.
Tuesday next week,
Yes,
it's got to be out.
that's correct.
If I may, and again, we're still on this.
Sure.
After talking to you, Greg, that this could be a plus for us because you and I spoke, this is it, it's up there, it's dead, but these are empty buildings.
Yeah,
And this could be something that we could bring back to life, working together to
absolutely.
this one, so.
Empty,
Because a lot of this is big empty
what do
buildings.
you think by empty? Which one?
Well, the Whipple, there's a lot of business up there that are on Whipple that are empty.
Not only that, it also encompasses the open plastic,
Yeah, there you go.
which they have some economic development tools available. They can help us with the current owner.
Mr. Walbert, thanks again for coming down. A lot of work for you.
Okay. That'll conclude unfinished business. It's going to take us to new business, and I'm going to keep that with our administrator, Mrs. Campbell.
Thank you. The only item under new business are the false alarms.
Also move on new business number 1, false alarms.
I will second it.
Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Geovasis?
Yes.
Okay, that's going to take us to the fiscal officer's report, and then turn it over to Mr. Flex.
Thank you, Mr. President. The first item on the agenda is a request for a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to authorize the payment of pending warrants in an amount of $249,383.47 as attached.
Also move,
Second.
discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Geovasis?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 2 is a request for a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to authorize the payment of regular payroll in an amount not to exceed $220,000.
I will so move authority to pay. Mr. Geovasis.
Second.
So, Mr. Lino on the motion, Mr. Geovasis second, roll call, or discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Geovasis?
Yes.
And Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Item number 3 is a request for a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to authorize the payment for the following medical claims as provided by All Care and Express Scripts.
Also move,
Second.
discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Geovasis?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Item number 4 is the financial report.
I think we're good.
Item number 5 is a request for a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to authorize a refund as following for overpayments for emergency medical services requested by Ohio Billing.
Also move,
Second it.
discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Geovasis?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 6 is a request for a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to authorize the following transfers.
I will so move authority to pay.
Second, discussion,
Yes, I just want to point out to the board that you will see some transfers from the Diamond Fund into some newly created funds. That's what those transfers are. Now that we will be having some new baseball tournaments, we wanted to be able to show what we were spending on maintenance for baseball to actually create new line items for baseball. And also now that we are having our mechanics maintain our equipment, which they should be, we purchased some very nice mowers in the past that need to be maintained in the right way. We've created a line item for those things. So just to create line items so we can watch those budget items.
any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Geovasis?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 7 is a request for a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to authorize a refund as follows for overpayments for emergency medical services as requested by Chief Snyder.
So moved.
Second, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
And Mr. Geovasis?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 8 is a request for a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees to authorize the release of the retainage amounts to, this is for Amber Electric and the completion of the fire station.
So move on fiscal officer number 8.
Second, discussion. Just Chief, as a point of clarification, absolutely everything at that station is done. We're good.
With that electric, yes.
Okay.
I did speak to the architect, he said, we're still under 1 year warranty, so because of the problem issues, they still have to do the correct. It's not been done, or the night is not been done, keep it correct.
Okay.
Most of the,
Roll call.
Mr. Geovasis?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 9 is a request for a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to authorize the release of the retainage for fire flow report for the new fire station. Chief Snyder.
Also move on fiscal officer number
I
9.
will second it.
Discussion. Chief, just same thing. Roll call.
Mr. Geovasis?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
And Mr. Lino?
Yes.
That concludes fiscal officer's report for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Flex. That's going to take us to our administrator's report. Mrs. Campbell.
I think I have one resolution this evening, which is to amend resolution number 13-198 to increase the amount from $13,500 to $18,700 and authorize payment to ME Company IBI Group for assistance with the construction management of the Schneider Park restaurant from fund number 21-A-04D.
Also move on administrator number 1.
Second.
Discussion.
Additional cost, squeeze that $5,000 towards Triple down here.
Yes,
Our back page.
You'll see that broken down for every item on the last couple pages. I did send an email to Mr. Morocco to ask if you would be receiving any other bills. I think the final thing that he has on the books with us is a final walkthrough, so I increased the resolution a tiny bit, and then we'll look at it.
Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Geovasis?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes. Okay, that's going to take us to the fire department. Chief Snyder.
yes, Mr. Chairman, item number 1 is authorize the purchase of payment for fitness equipment, and special fitness equipment.
So moved.
Second, discussion. Guys, I know I sat down with Chief just to take a look through the equipment. I think this is pretty big, basic, but yet it's going to allow a lot of dynamic, functional training. I did comment to Chief while one of our staff was in presence. I have an expectation, at least personally, that we know we've got certain folks that will use this automatically, but getting a program in place that will have everybody utilizing that. And I know Chief said he's going to work through some details on how people can get over, on their work days and so forth, because one of our neighboring communities does that. They've said the expectation, in fact, is these guys are the front line. This is health and wellness. It's going to help on the back end with workers' comp claims, injuries, and so forth. So something forthcoming should be some type of plan or just insight to the board on.
Will this now eliminate
The fitness reimbursement.
Which is a contract, and once again, will be invested in the contract.
Some will have to address the negotiations.
And I mean, if we're providing the health and fitness there and on site, I think that's something that is being used.
And again, a lot of this goes up to the phone poles.
Is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Gevasis?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Item number 2 is authorize the purchase and payment for installation of equipment for radios, emergency lights and siren for the 2014 Ford Explorer edition. Used compensation equipment.
Second, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Gevasis?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. It's going to take us to our Public Service Department. I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Iacino.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, item number 1 is a resolution to advertise for bids for road materials on March 20th and March 27th. Bids depository to be open on April 10th, 2013 at 12:30 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Are there any, I mean, outside of the one paper, is there any reason for anything else? Okay. Okay. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Gevasis?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Item number 2 is a resolution to dispose of scrap metal, $2,500 through the higher price code.
I will so move.
Second. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Gevasis?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Item number 3 is a resolution to authorize the purchase and installation of 2 snow and ice truck packages for Glad Hill Road machinery, not to exceed $107,604.64.
I will so move.
Second. Discussion.
These are gone.
These are for the new trucks we ordered at the last meeting. When the trucks are built, we sent to Glad Hill on
Pretty much the same package that we're using on our.
similar. We're adding a few features to it to make it easier.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Gevasis?
Yes.
Item number 4, we received a letter from the Stark County engineer, Pete Bennett. They are going through with the cooperative purchasing of salt for next year. They got 20 out of 24 agencies that bid last year returned positive. Running it by the board. We still want to do it, and I'll have to fill out how much we're going to use. Take a guess.
I absolutely, my preference and recommendation is we absolutely pursue it, given the issues we know with the state bid process with some of the local jurisdictions having issues even getting material.
I agree, and I don't think those prices that they got these year will be back next year.
Yeah, I appreciate the Stark County engineer doing his homework.
Yes, I did.
It was up in the air.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, thank you.
The last item is to amend resolution 14-107 on the hiring of Andrew Zelorius. A little mix up on the wage. We have it down as 81, it should be 84 cents.
Also move on public service number 5.
I'll second it.
Discussion.
Should the other resolution be rescinded, or are we just amending?
Just amending it.
Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Gevasis?
Yes.
Thank you, Joe. We have nothing related to zoning at this time?
Not city manager.
Nothing.
No report.
Nothing under parks programming for the law director, so I'm going to turn communications over to our administrator, Ms. Campbell.
Thank you. I'm going to turn that communication over to Mr. Iacino so he can discuss this communication and what we've done so far with it.
Being with the past winter we had, Stanley Governor wasn't able to work much on the bridge down to 55th and Harmon area. Working with the weather, turning towards the better, we hope after tomorrow. They're going to be closing that area for 90 days, because they have to line up the old roads to the new bridge. So our fire chief and the school guard has been notified. It's going to be tough getting around there for 90 days. We remember when it first went out. So we have no problems.
The light's not in the tunnel.
This was told at the pre-construction meeting, that this was going to happen.
Well, they planned on doing this last October, and because
Right.
of the depth, they had to.
They had so much fire problems.
Had to go to get rid of that.
This is on our website.
We need to make sure that definitely gets emphasized to the paper, our media, even our report. You had that on the quarterly newsletter,
Yeah,
we
I'll
received
see.
it late.
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
I'll see if there's a way to float it out there. We'll definitely give it to the paper.
Okay. Settled. Wrap up communications, comes to the public speaks section of our meeting. Is there anybody in the crowd who wishes to address the Board of Trustees? If so, please state your name and address for the record. Yeah, and the note, this is not with respect to the zoning hearing yet at 7 o'clock, so.
No. My name is Ambrose Perduke. I am president of Stonehenge Homeowners Association, and I just wanted to convey a thank you. We had a homeowner very upset because their mailbox was decimated by a plow, and I called Lou, and Lou, I think, talked to Mr. Icino and Mr. Burke, and the mailbox was repaired the very next day, I believe. So the homeowner, I guess he was happy because he didn't text me back. But I do appreciate the how quickly that was repaired. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to address the Board of Trustees at this time? No. Including public speaks, takes concerns of the trustees. Whether you had anything for the record? Concerns of the fiscal officer, Mr. Flex. And it's going to take us to the approval of our minutes for February 25th, 2014. I'm going to move to approve those.
Second it?
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. DeVasis?
Yes.
Mr. Haas?
Yes. We're going to adjourn at this time, 6:24 p.m. until our public hearing at 7 p.m. for the zoning hearing. The Board of Trustees is coming back from recess from our general meeting Tuesday, March 11th. We're going to open and go to the public hearing regarding amendment number 555. Prior to doing so, I'm going to ask that everybody stand. We're going to say the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll get started. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everybody. As I've noted, the reason for the hearing tonight is for amendment number 555 regarding the rezoning of the property known as Edgewood Golf Course. Up here, just so everybody's aware who we have up here, should there need to be questions. We've got our Public Service Director, Mr. Joe Iacino. We've got our Law Director, Eric Williams. We've got our Administrator, Lisa Campbell. Fellow Trustee, Al Lino. Fellow Trustee, Lucia Basis. We've got Fire Chief Donald Snyder. Parks and Programming Director, Rob Steinberg. We've got our detective, Bill Koenig. We've got our Zoning Planning and Development Director, Denny Falk. Sorry, Denny, my mind went blank just for a second. And we have our Fiscal Officer, Mr. Anthony Flesh, at the end. As far as ground rules and parameters for how this hearing will be conducted, and we will adhere to these parameters strictly. We're going to allow McKinley Development, Mr. Dehoff and Mr. Lemon, Mrs. Borda, 15 minutes up front to discuss the plan that was originally proposed, went before the zoning commission. I do know there's renderings up here of what the proposed plan is, and then there's a secondary rendering of what that property could be without any type of zoning hearing. But we are here to vote on what comes before the zoning committee. Should there wish to be a representative to speak on behalf of the opposition, you will be granted 15 minutes. Should there not be, then everybody will be awarded 3 minutes. We will adhere to that strictly. The board will make any decisions on whether any additional time is granted for either party. And all comments will be done in a procedural order. From the first anybody that wishes to speak in opposition, the first folks that we will take will be property owners that immediately abut or adjoin the Edgewood property. The second folks that will be allowed to speak will be township residents who may be at a distance, and then the third will be any from a non-resident should they be across the street in the city of North Canton. That being said, just in case of emergencies, please be aware our exits are on the back left and right corners. Should we need to evacuate, and would make a left immediately out of either doorway out to the parking lot past the library and Mercy Medical. So that being said, I'm going to welcome the representative or representatives from McKinley Development. If you wish to start, please. I would ask that whoever speaks, we do have a sign-in sheet here at the front. You sign your name and your address legibly, and that you leave the pen behind so the next folks can sign it. And we do intend to close all comments at 8 o'clock.
Good evening. My name is Bob Dehoff. I represent McKinley Development Company, a partnership of Bill Lemon and myself. Bill and I began this process over a year ago.
Can we have your address, please?
821 South Main Street, North Canton, Ohio. Bill and I began this process a little over a year ago when the owner, the lender that foreclosed on the church, CDF Holdings, called us to ask if we were interested in helping them develop the balance of the property. In the summer of last year, as we all know, we submitted a plan for Edgewood. We heard loud and clear from your zoning commission, as well as many people here this evening, what they didn't like about the plan. After several months working with our land planner and engineering firms, we revised our plan, which is before you today. There's been some criticism in the community that we didn't change much of the plan from the one we submitted in the summer of last year. We think we made substantial changes that benefit the community and the neighborhood. If I could just enumerate a few. We reduced the acreage requested to be rezoned from 114 acres to 33. We reduced the attached housing, our multifamily, from 200 units to 96, from 20 unit buildings to 8 units, and from 3 stories in height to 2 stories. from detached garages to attached garages. We also provided guarantees to the township and to the adjacent property owners that by way of deed covenants, we were going to ensure that the single-family lots and homes would mirror the size and quality of the adjacent homes in Stonebridge and Wellington Hills. Condominiums would be across from Steiner Heights, and the attached residential and villas would be shown as stated on the site plan. At the zoning commission on February 12th, it was suggested by one of the commission members that we create a separate tax parcel for the R3 zoning. And that night we concurred with that. We are willing to do that. In regards to concerns that was raised at the zoning meeting about stormwater management, detention of water, access for fire and safety forces, internal roadway circulation, both on the public as well as the private roads, open space requirements, and sufficient utilities to serve the development, I can assure you that each and every one of these issues will be reviewed and must be approved by Plain Township and the Stark County subdivision regulations at the time the site plan is submitted. In summary, we believe, and it is our belief, not held by all, but we believe the plan we have submitted, taken as a whole, is better for the township, the community, and the adjacent neighborhoods than the plan that would be existing all R1 zoning. There are 3 points that I need to mention so everyone understands. Bill Lemon and I are going to buy the golf course regardless of whether or not we get our zoning. It will not stay a golf course. 2, we will either develop the plan as submitted, as what we are proposing, or in the alternative, if we don't receive our zoning, it will be an entry-level, single-family community. The only way we believe that Edgewood can be developed as a high-end residential community similar to Wellington Hills and Stonehenge is if we are able to get our plan approved as submitted. Gentlemen, if I may, I'd like to reserve the balance of my allotted time to answer any questions or address any concerns raised by the people that speak in opposition to the development.
I will reserve any questions I have for the end of the hearing.
Well, we can get any time, so yes, you will be that at the end. So that's going to take us to any. Do we have anybody else who wishes to speak in support of the proposed plan? Okay, that's going to take us to our section. In support of. You wish to speak, sir? Okay, if you sign in, hit the sheet, sign your name legibly, and then as well, we'll just state it for our fiscal officer for the record.
Okay. My name is Larry Lynn, Linn, 6609 Morellis Avenue Northeast in Stonehenge, Alaska. I just want to say that I received the information both from a stuffer that was in our newspaper box from the local whomever, and also the information from DeHoff Development Company. I would be completely remiss if I did not 100% support Plan A and 100% oppose Plan B. I like my property, the property value, and Plan A is only going to enhance that value. Plan B is going to kill it. It's going to knock it right out the back door and ruin it. I just want to go down as being in support of Plan A. My daughter, who is in Fairlawn, Ohio, another daughter in Hudson, all the new development has got multi-villa, condo, and large home complexes. That's what all the new development is, and I've seen it in all the bigger cities, and now it's coming into the smaller cities. To go with Plan B, with small homes, small lots, as opposed to Plan A, that has everything, including additional taxes for the school system and additional taxes for Plain Township, would be completely remiss. I support Plan A.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else that wishes to address the board in support of the proposed plan? Okay, that's going to take us to anybody who wishes to speak in opposition. As I've noted, the opening parameters, we will first take anybody whose property immediately abuts/joins up against the existing Edgewood Golf Course property. And if you wish to be the representative for the entire party in here, you'll be able to have 50 minutes. Otherwise, you will have 3 minutes. If you will, please sign in the sheet. And then just note for our fiscal officer, name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Susan Steiner, and I live at 6851 Deer Trail Avenue Northeast, immediately adjacent to the golf course. And I will just be speaking for 3 minutes. What I wanted to cover today is what our traditional zoning philosophy has been in Plain Township. The basic area surrounding Edgewood Golf Course's zoning has been and remained R1, from the corner of Market and Schneider, east to Middle Branch, north to Apple Grove, west to Market and back. There is only one spot-specific R3 apartments that sit at the corner of Market and Apple Grove, and they have been there for over 40 years. For 40 years, the Regional Planning Commission, the Plain Township Zoning Board, and trustees have seen fit to maintain single-family nature of Plain Township. In fact, if you broaden the area, northern border to Kansas City at 55th, east to Middle Branch, north to Mount Pleasant, Lake Township, west to Mount Pleasant to Elmhurst, south to Elmhurst, and follow the border to North Canton back to 55th, there are only 2 small areas of R3 zoning: Kings Creek subdivision and Diamond Estate subdivision. And to put that in a better context, that is 3,000 acres and about 5 square miles. The development in open space, farmlands contiguous, are all R1, as I said. There are many single-family homes, a few villas in Washington Square. The first development, the first McKinley development project, proposed 73 single homes, 18 villas, 14 senior apartments, 11 multifamily, and a multi-story apartment buildings as mentioned. This plan has 90 single family, give or take 5.1828 acres for senior housing not defined, 62 villas, 2-story apartments, 8 per unit with 12 units and 20 condo units potential. And doing the math, which I thought was fair, with two people living in the villas, 2 people living in the condo units, and 2.5 in all of the other, we'd have about 829 people. I think that's a fair evaluation. And I understand there's Plan B, and it looks like probably a mobile home park to people or a Monopoly game, but I can assure you that we're serious about being opposed to R3. And I would vote in opposition to this plan. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. would, please sign legibly the sign-in sheet, and then as well state your name and address for the record.
My name is Bill Fallon. I live at 6919 Deer Trail Avenue. My wife and I have lived here for 9 years, and we oppose the rezoning. We looked at the master plan, not being permanent residents, growing up in this area, and sort of used that as what we think you should be doing the same thing, which is using it as a guiding principle. And in there it talks about maintaining a sound revenue base for the township with the appropriate balanced use of land. They strongly recommend redevelopment in existing areas, which that plan does not. They also strongly demand that the appropriate infrastructure be in place. That plan does not. They also strongly suggest that you preserve open space, which that plan does not, and that you do not increase the demand on public services, which that plan does. I think last time I talked about my house, which in, I believe it was roughly 2001, was initially marketed as a beautiful home with a lot of view of green open space. The asking price was $145 a square foot. I had the same real estate agent come in, evaluate my property, and it's now valued at $100 a square foot. That's a 31% decline in value. That plan is going to take it down further. We are still opposed to the rezoning. We ask that you vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else who wishes to address the board whose property immediately butts Edgewood?
I won't steal it.
If you would as well, just please state your name and your address to our fiscal officer for the records.
My name is Carl Wagner. I live at 1303 Stone Crossing Street. One of the biggest concerns that I and a lot of the community people have is traffic. If we look at what we presently have in the traffic pattern, we can see that Eastland Market is a chaos. I know you've all been there, and I know you've all seen chaos of trying to get through lights and backup lights, people trying to get through to make a left turn. In the area we have Glenwood High School, Lexington Farms, Washington Square, the Washington community. We have a daycare center for kids. We have a medical complex. We have Walsh College, which is adding and growing and buying property and increasing students. We have Stonehenge. We have the gas stations. We have Edgewood Community Center. We even have the complex now McDonald's building. The First Christian Church, they have a problem because they bring traffic control people in just to get in and out. There's other businesses there, including the cleaners and another medical, but regardless though, there was a lot of traffic there. It's impossible to make a left-hand turn in any of those. And if you do, you take your life in your hands or let somebody tell you to pull out in front of you. There's over 35,000 cars pass through this intersection between 5 and 11 p.m. And that's not my figures, that come from the state. Now we're being asked to accept additional houses, condos, senior, and housing, which is to be determined later, which we don't know what that's going to incur because there'll be other employees, etc. And I'm not sure by looking at that, and you people, I'm sure, looked at it, the road in and out of that present allotment, I don't think the road was really designed for that much traffic going out in anyway. But anyway, a lot of people are cut through now, and my concern, and our concern, is the safety issues of kids in the streets coming down. There's your regard to traffic signs, speed, and everything else going through. And I'll close by leaving you a statement which was presented and given by the CC, which is the surveyor who did the traffic survey. And this is the last paragraph. The level for service westbound approaching during AM and PM peak periods for both alternatives were rated F. This delay increases the risk of crashes. This approach is due to the vehicle pushing the envelope and trying to exit through. So we're concerned is once this gets in, we've added all these other houses and allotments to the area, and we're concerned with that in our area.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Do we have anybody else whose property immediately abuts Edgewood that wishes to address the Board of Trustees? Let her go first, and then we'll have you next, sir. If you would, just please state your name and address for the record, ma'am.
My name is Stephanie Altieri. I live at 6967 Deer Trail. I just wanted to talk briefly about the Plain Local Schools. You know, as Susie Steiner had mentioned, there's going to be 829 people. By that, you know, by half, maybe that's how many kids are going to be in this allotment. And, you know, all of that is in Middle Branch Elementary School District zone. I have a kindergartner in Middle Branch, and it's already at capacity. What are they going to do with all these additional kids? I'll tell you what they're going to do. They're going to redistrict. And when this is all said and done, my son's going to be at this school for 2 or 3 years. And he's going to have to probably be switched to a different school in order to accommodate all of the children. They're going to be moving in there. So what's he going to do? He's going to lose the school that he's loved. He's going to lose all of his friends. Not to say that that will happen, but that's a real good possibility. And I know the DeHoff company has talked to Brent May, the superintendent. They're going to welcome all these children. Who wouldn't? It's a school district. Yes, they're going to welcome whatever kids they have to come into the schools. I don't think that's very fair to the children who are already enrolled in Middle Branch. You know, we've voiced all of our opinions for months now, opposing this plan. And, you know, I know that there's money to be made by DeHoff. I know that. Who wouldn't want to make some money? But, you know, when they start to get some pushing back from the community, what do? We get a packet in our mail with both of the plans, and it's a real fine line of a thread, in my opinion. Either kind of go with our proposal, or we're going to do this to you. We're going to put a Stark Park trail in your backyard. I don't agree with it, and I ask that all of you turn down the zoning request. Thank you.
Thank you. With the gentleman up in the back right corner.
Hi, my name is Roger Steed. I live at 909 Stone Crossing.
And if you'll first please sign in on the form down there.
The questions that I have, obviously, it's a business decision. I think no matter, we honestly feel, my family feels like coming to these things seems sometimes useless because we receive the packet and it's going to be this or it's going to be this, which I agree with the young lady about insulting. You got a nice, pretty trees and roads and how looking at it looks so pretty, but then we get this plan here. It's like it's almost insulting. Like you get, without being, you can get a hot dog or you can get almost doo-doo. I mean, this is pretty insulting. But my question is, and it's been bothering me. Before the election, I had a gentleman who lives in our allotment. He shows up, and I spoke with him in my driveway. And I agree with that gentleman who spoke 2 times ago, and he was talking about the depreciation. And what he said before election was that, don't you worry, Roger, these houses will be nicer than yours. Now, before election, it's amazing how they're going to be so nice and prim, and it's going to be beautiful, and it's going to be amazing. And then I get the apartments. I get, this allotment. This was probably what it's going to go to because the traffic in here. But I know he lives in my allotment, and my house is nicer than his. If he thinks an apartment is going to be nicer than mine, will he move into the apartment? The depreciation value is amazing. I live on actually one of the holes. I live on one of the holes there at 909 at the bend. And I think the whole frustration point to me is when we purchased our home, we purchased it, and it's no going back. It's going to be golf course is going to be golf course, and it's not. And you look at depreciation, for me and my family, the money lost, there's going to be a development there. I think, and honestly, I think we spend a lot of time when we come in and we talk about it and say, hey, we wouldn't want this, we wouldn't want that, but there's going to be something there. What is the situation for us as owners that we could purchase the land coming down the side and we develop it, or we make it? Are we going to have to pay the premium dollar to purchase the lots behind us because of the overall investment? Is there something there that we can buy to the street, or is it going to be marked up because of the value and try to make the investment and the profit?
Well, with respect to the questions, I know Mr. Geovasis has said that he'll hold his comments till the end, but from just a high-level legal aspect, my understanding, I'm not a real estate attorney, but the reality is Mr. Dehoff and Mr. Lemon have a pending contract on that. So there's nothing that you can do currently to try to purchase that. The only way that could ever materialize is should they opt to walk away from it, which Mr. Dehoff has already noted they intend on closing on that. So I guess your option there would be is after they've closed on it, would be to purchase a tract, a parcel, or multiple parcels from them. But again, I'm not a legal attorney to be able to provide you that opinion. That would be something you want to seek your own legal counsel on, but I do know from a high level of fact that there's a pending contract.
So our agreement is that us coming here is he's going to develop the property and he's closing on the property, and there's really, we either take A or B.
Yeah, you have plan A, which is what they're proposing today. They're asking for the change. Or you have the other rendering, which is what they can do today without having to seek any type of zoning changes in keeping it all as R1. And on that note, Mr. Falk, is there any additional points of clarification we should provide Mr. Steed with respect to his question here that I made?
I guess, number one, both plans would need to go through final regional planning commission review for subdivision review, and any site plan would need to go through regional planning commission for review, as well as come back through zoning. However, it is true that the remainder of the parcel, well, there's 33 acres of property that are requested to be rezoned to R3. The remainder R1 can be developed at this time. As any sanction, any development would want to, basically, as long as it meets subdivision and zoning regulations.
That's all I have. Thank you for your time, sir. Is there?
Well, just for the clarification, since we brought up on record, like many of the people in this audience prior to the election last year, most of us, I think, Scott Halls, even going door to door, stood in many of the driveways over there, and I do live in this a lot. At that point, I did state that what was presented to us originally was that these homes were going to mirror the homes that were in Stonehenge. I think Mr. Dehoff tonight clarified that the single-family homes as presented at Plan 8 do match the houses in Stonehenge. I also did discuss there was a zoning request pending for the multi-family that was held and not disclosed at the time. As far as some of the other things about the multifamily abutting that and circumstances behind that, I'm not going to address that at this time. But I just want to clarify for the record, yes, I did go door to door through that allotment as well as Wellington, and I stood in many driveways and presented the same facts that were presented to me at that time, not only to Mr. Steve, but just about every resident I spoke with.
That being said, do we have any other, okay, sorry, he'll sign and then.
Ambrose Purdue, 1013 Stone Crossing Street. I have a lot of hats that I wear, so I want to introduce them. I'm a homeowner that abuts the property. I'm also president of the Homeowners Association, which represents most of the homes in Stonehenge. And I'm also on the school board here, Plain. Plain is in the business to educate students. We educate students. We have no other, there is no other position by Mr. May or anyone else about the preference. That said, the opinion of most of the homeowners that I spoke with on the previous meetings, the concern was that there is an open property north of Edgewood that has not been declared. And I believe that's been the contention that I had too.
Mr. Purdue, if you'll address it.
I'm sorry. That is the contention that we all had, was that if we show favor to the zoning change, then that opens up a hornet's nest north of Edgewood. And while I love apartments, I have 3 sons. 2 are, one's graduated as an engineer looking for an apartment right now. One's going to graduate in May, they'll look for an apartment. They make good money, they can afford an apartment, but they can't afford a house. So we like apartments. We would like, as the township, to have a little more control as to the numbers of apartments that could potentially go in on the north end of Edgewood. And I brought that up before. That was the theme from all the homeowners, was that they're concerned about not the apartments, but where it is that is contiguous, that's right, with an open parcel of property that abuts an R3 already. And that, thinking ahead for you guys, would be very difficult for you to deny a request later on for that contiguous property to be changed. When I bought my house in 1999, I grew up here on McDowell Street off of Market. When we moved back, we looked at the homes in Stonehenge, and the realtor showed us 2 or 3 homes, and she said that the golf course was going to be sold. So anyone that says they did not know, I don't know who they were talking to. The church handed me plans when I was with part of the Homeowners Association of what their 10-year plan was going to be. And in 10 years from the date of their purchase, which would have been 2014, they were going to develop the golf course. We knew that was coming. So I just wanted to point that as a clarification that we were aware of something was going to happen. We would just like to see a little more control for future purchases. Thank you.
Mr. Ardley?
One of our people...
If you would first sign in first and then state your name for the record for our fiscal officer, please.
Dan Ardley, 1311 Stone Crossing. I was wondering if I could have an extra minute and a half. One of our opposition speakers is not going to be available, and I could use the minute and a half, if permissible, in addition to the 3. I'm going to present a twist. Okay. I'll speed it up. I'll have to read. I'm going to present a twist on many things that have been said today and make some suggestions. I'd like to remind everyone that Mr. Lemon, 4 or 5 months ago, talked about $300,000 to $600,000 homes bordering Wellington, 250 to 325 on Stonehenge. That did not happen, and it will not happen. I would like to share my most recent letter to the repository editor, which was never printed. I have modified it somewhat. It is very disappointing that Mr. Dehoff and Mr. Lemon, who do not reside in our community, would cause so much distress to our residents, all in the name of business, opportunity, and profit, just as they have admitted several times recently. This is a shameful message that they sent us in their packet. It is utter disregard and disrespect for the hundreds of people who have attended the zoning hearings previously, even in the dead of winter, which is very unconscionable. They sent intimidating information, giving our residents an ultimatum, threatening to do no matter what happens this evening by you gentlemen. They will do what they want to do. It is our choice. Either a very bad plan or a really, really very bad plan. That is our choice. Thank you very much, Mr. Lemon, Mr. Dehoff. Your plans have been rejected twice in a resounding 5-0 and 3-2 vote. Very convincing to everyone but you gentlemen. McKinley would make us believe that apartment living is the wave of the future. It is not. Stability comes with home ownership, not jamming people in 2-story buildings and multi-family buildings. That is a fact. I have to cut everything down by half so I can get done. If they get the R3, they have the latitude to do pretty much what they want to do. And they can go back to that original monstrosity of a plan that they presented last summer. They have that prerogative. I would suggest in closing that if McKinley truly wants to help Stark County, then look at the blighted areas of Stark County, the ones in need of attention and development. I also have other suggestions. I'm sorry, I'm out of time. But I do thank you, and I would remind you that you are the collective voice and conscience of the community.
I'll grant you 1 more minute, and that's it.
1 more minute?
1 more minute.
Thank you very much. And I will abide by that. They will be free to do whatever they wish, and they have that prerogative. And we know that the R1 always came into play, contractually. We understand that. But they have varied from that. And then they threaten with this. Entry-level homes behind Wellington, behind Stonehenge, across from Washington Square. That's pathetic. I would like to suggest one more thing. In leaving, I would suggest that McKinley Development leave a legacy to our wonderful community by purchasing the golf course, donating it, deeding it, the entire property to Plain Township, Stark Parks,
You're going to have to wrap up, Mr. Arlene.
Plain Parks, First Tee, or any combination thereof. It would go very well with the First Christian Community Church. And gentlemen, you may gain much respect and admiration from a grateful community for a generation or two. We thank you kindly.
Do we have anybody else whose property immediately butts or adjoins the Edgewood property that wishes to speak to the board? Okay, that being said, do we have any Plain Township residents who do not immediately join but wish to address the board? Yeah. If you would also, if you could just state your name and address for the record, ma'am, for our fiscal officer.
Excuse me, my name is Patricia Owen. We live at 1836 Summer Chase Road, Northeast, in Wellington, Woods. While I'm doing this, I can start to say what I have to say. I am concerned...
Excuse me, ma'am. Robert, so could you turn the microphone down for we cannot hear you up here? Thank you.
I am concerned about the part of the property that's requesting rezoning known as to be determined. The senior living, assisted living housing facility. We haven't been told any differently that that is in the hands of currently a management company to be developed. The number of residents at the last meeting that would be in this medical facility, the minimum would be 75. You have 75 residents if this is approved, all needing services, medical services, all sorts of services. There's nothing in the plan yet about the to be determined for parking spaces, emergency generator space, access. I would imagine that this number of residents would put somewhat of a stress on our EMS. I'm very concerned about the access to these people in and out, such as it's written. I'm a nurse, so this is coming from, excuse me, part of me as a nursing thing, and we have so little information on that. My question would be, how can a management company recognize the needs of the surrounding areas? My second concern, again, too, is traffic. We have a lot of people cut through our neighborhood, which is at the end of the hills, or I'm sorry, the end of the woods. People cut through from the areas surrounding the current neighborhoods, now that it's open, to be able to get to Apple Grove. Traffic is going to be a disaster. And my third comment is that all of us represented here live in associations. When we bought our house, we knew we had to be part of an association. We live by strict rules. All of us are proud homeowners. We all take care of our property. What's with that? They'll have no rules to go by. Those are my comments. I appreciate the fact that you let me speak. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Do we have anybody else who wishes to address the board? From a young lady in the back. If you would as well, just state your name and address for the record.
My name's Ellen Baumgarten. I live at 1996 Summer Chase Road. And if it's okay with you, I'm going to take for under 30 seconds. I read this in front of the mirror about 5 times this afternoon. I got down to 3 minutes, 20 seconds. 7 months ago, the Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously voted against rezoning the same parcels and the same acreage that we're talking about tonight, and McKinley Development withdrew their application. The majority of citizens in attendance and the majority of Planning and Zoning Commission during the last 2 public hearings were in agreement that the current zoning designation of single-family homes R1 should remain. What's really changed in the last 7 months to make the application rezoning any different? Perhaps McKinley's first application was contingent upon R3 zoning before the land was purchased. Now they're saying they're going to buy the land regardless. Because McKinley's first application and plan were probably never made its way to the trustees, you probably haven't been given the opportunity to compare the two site plans submitted. McKinley said they took all comments into consideration with their second site plan, met with the Stark County Auditor regarding property tax generation, and gave their version of a meeting held with the school superintendent. But if you compare the two site plans, there are very few differences. It's still R3 housing, which has the potential of doubling the number of residents in this area. Save our neighborhood. We don't want R3 multifamily housing. Besides the negative impact of bringing an influx of grade school children to Mill Branch Elementary when that school is already out of space and using their gymnasium for additional classrooms, the increase of property taxes generated would not cover the cost to even consider expanding that school. Is McKinley Development willing to fund an expansion of Middle Branch Elementary from the profit they'll make from this development? And what about the so-called land buffers of the 10 and 25 feet that McKinley refers to in their application? There are too many questions surrounding the ownership and maintenance of these so-called buffers and does not resolve the issues of current property owners who abut this property. Save our neighborhood. We do not want R3 multifamily housing. Who will maintain the private streets within the proposed development in the wintertime so school buses and emergency vehicles can get through? How will McKinley's emergency access only streets be controlled? Traffic through Wellington Hills, Wellington Woods, and Stonehenge could double as streets are connected into those areas. The residents of Stonehenge already have a problem with the connection into Lexington Farms. About a week after the first public hearing, there was a traffic speed monitor on our street because people going down Summer Chase were speeding through the neighborhood. Obviously, we have a traffic problem, and we hate to see things get worse. Save our neighborhood. We do not want R3 multiple housing. While driving down Market Street today, I became very sad when I thought of the high probability of having approximately 3/4 of a mile of nothing but multifamily dwellings between Apple Grove and Kings Cove Circle. If the trustees allow R3 housing at Edgewood, and there's R3 housing already on the corner of Apple Grove and Market, with the Getchy property sandwiched in between, how hard will it not be to allow additional multifamily residents on that parcel when that land is sold? Save our neighborhood. We do not want R3 multiple family housing. McKinley's.
We have your times.
Okay. According to the Stark County Auditor's website this afternoon, McKinley Development and DeHoff combined own. I've got 30 seconds. 30 seconds.
Let's wrap it up.
Okay. According to the Stark County Auditor's website this afternoon, McKinley Development and DeHoff combined own over 300 parcels in Stark County, 90% of which are vacant residential lands. Why build at Edgewood? It is my understanding that McKinley Development owns most of the Sanctuary Golf Course. The apartment complex on the corner of Apple Grove and Starcliff is currently being expanded. That area is already zoned for multifamily units. Infrastructure Mr. Lemon spoke about 7 months ago is already in place. The infrastructure at Edgewood is not. I think we all agree that McKinley is a local, reputable developer that has built beautiful places in Plain Township and Stark County. Their implication of an out-of-town buyer or developer having the ability to dictate what type of development built on the Edgewood property is now a moot point. In my opinion, there's nothing that's really changed in the last 7 months. Save our neighborhood. We do not want R3 multiple family housing. The rezoning. I have 3 sentences. 3 sentences.
That's what you told me before. Your time's wrapped up.
I'm going to say this. I sincerely hope the trustees back the majority of residents and the majority of the Planning and Zoning Commission by rejecting McKinley's application for R3 zoning at Edgewood. The potential of urban sprawl would create a negative impact on the surrounding community. The trustees were elected to help protect the quality of life in Plain Township, and I earnestly hope that you disallow any developer's request for rezoning the parcels in question. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that's a township resident who wishes to address the board? We'll take 1 or 2 more people because it will be 8 o'clock then. If you would, please sign the sheet and state your name and your address for your record for our fiscal officer.
My name is Arena Kimler. I reside at 7007 Market Avenue North, Canton, Ohio. I sent you all an email. Did you want me to repeat my email? No. Did you want me to read my email?
You've got 3 minutes to make whatever comments you wish to address the board with.
Greetings. We realize this is a difficult decision for all involved. We would like to voice our opinions as to why the First Christian Church property should remain R1. We live on the corner of Amarillo Street and Market Avenue, which is right across from where the apartments is going to be located. Some things we would like you to consider regarding the plans which McKinley Development offered for consideration. Number 1, why was the route changed on Sandalwork Circle from Plan A to Plan B? Why couldn't it remain the same on both plans? If you know, the Sandalwork Circle extends into Kingscote Circle, where the state of Ohio has proposed the traffic light. In Plan B, it's a dead end. What happened to the ball field? Why was it removed? Plan A shows the ball field, Plan B does not. Would not the developer still have to abide by the Plain Township and Stark County building codes? I compared the comparison charts, covenants, and restrictions. In Plan A, he says guarantee on what will be built is enforced by Plain Township and residents. Plan B, there's none. Won't other developments and Stark Park trails along property lines? Regarding comparison chart, Stark Park trails. Plan A, integrated throughout the development. Plan B, along the property lines. Either way, they're going to be on property lines. Number 5, who are the developers deeding this land? The Stark Park trails or the Edgewood Homeowners Association? If they deed it to Stark Parks, won't Stark Parks be able to develop the land as they want? And I took that from the comparison and considerations explaining the 25-foot and 10-foot buffer areas. Number 6, once a plan has been submitted to the Plain Township Zoning Committee and Stark County, won't that become the master plan? And if so, won't the details of the master plan then be in compliance? And I again took the comparison charts, compliance with master plan. Plan A complies with master plan. Plan B, not recommended master plan. Some other questions to consider. Why has Mr. Dehoff and Mr. Lemon now resorted to what my husband and I referred to emotional blackmail or scare tactics? And I took that on the changing the road pattern, removing the ball field, sounding like they can build any type of home, stating park trails will now be along property lines, stating there's no buffer zone, and stating there is no compliance. Do we want apartments, condos, and villas lined on Market Avenue to Apple Grove? We know if this ruling is passed to R3, the rest of the open spaces on Market Avenue will become multifamily.
Mrs. Kindler, you're going to please need to wrap up.
Yeah, one more question. Do we want the added traffic on Market Avenue before it is widened, or worse yet, during the widening? Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. We've got time for two more speakers. Please state your name and address for the fiscal officer.
Oh, well. Name's Gary Mall. I live at 7160 Deer Trail. I'm going to start with my closing so I don't get cut off. The reason we're here tonight is because the zoning board has defeated this proposal. We're here to talk about this proposal, not that. That's an insult to us. We're here because the zoning board voted this down and recommended to you to vote it down twice. And we're asking you and you and you to vote this down. We do not want R3 in Plain Township in the Edgewood area. Now, these gentlemen sent this out this week. It's insulting. This is drafted by an 8th grader. This is professional. Look at this, just look at the drawings, what they're trying to do. If they think they can sell 162 entry-level homes, then why aren't they selling the places over at Sanctuary? Why do they have to sell Saratoga Hills, which they boldly state in their letter as one of their great developments, to somebody else like Ryan Homes to sell them? If they've got the market for that, they ought to do it. These numbers that they put out here to scare us, to say that we're going to get almost $1 million in taxes versus $500,000, do the numbers. 90 homes at $350,000, that's never been talked about. If they can sell 90 homes at $350,000, they damn well better get them over here in this thing and sell them. The $125,000 for an apartment complex, I went on the auditor's site, I got some inside information. The average apartment is valued at about $43,000 to $49,000, and that includes the numbers for their Bearside Garden, which they put up. I'd like to say a lot more, but I'm pretty frustrated with the idea that we got 3 minutes to talk and we're getting cut off, and so that's what I have to say.
Is there anybody else who wishes to address the board? We'll take one more speaker. No additional individuals wishing to address the board in opposition. Okay. Mr. Dehoff, Mr. Lemon, we've granted you time from the beginning, so we'll bring it down. So I just ask that of the points that have been made, you just direct any comments directly to the board.
Do my best.
3 minutes.
Well, try to get the highlights of what was said. I think foremost, maybe in the primary issue tonight is why the difference between what we're proposing and what we're planning if the zoning is not granted. As we said in the mail out, in the last 10 years in Plain Township, all of the developments have been entry level. Diamond Estates, Lexington Farms, the one we did off of Middle Branch, because that, unfortunately, is the market. Not to say that every man's home is his castle. We take pride in Pebblebrook, which is certainly an entry-level development we did probably 20 years ago. Sidewalks, street trees. Let me assure everyone tonight, regardless of how the plans look, Mr. Lemon and I will do a quality residential development given whatever zoning is granted here this evening. We're not going to ever do something that we're not proud of, and hopefully something that will always be a quality development. I was on the phone with Jim Miller today. Jim Miller was one of the developers of Monticello. He's a resident born and raised in Plain Township. He and his brother are developing Lexington Farms. We have some issues between Lexington and Edgewood that we're talking about. And I asked you about Monticello. Why didn't he do another Monticello versus a Lexington Farms? Monticello being larger lots, more expensive homes, compared to smaller lots, less expensive homes at Lexington. And his words were clearly, Monticello was a losing investment for he and his partners. He said it was a sizable loss. He still has, I think he said 30-some lots available for sale. His partner, I guess he bought out, his partner bought him out, has a remaining plat of vacant land to develop, and the numbers don't work. They're upside down for large lots, more expensive homes. Bill and I don't make the market, we work with the market. We maybe try to push the market, but we don't make the market. Unfortunately, the market right now in Plain Township, as well as other school systems and townships around the county is an entry-level development. Let me mention, and I'm sorry the plan doesn't look better when we, someone asked us, if we don't get our zoning, would you show us, what type of development you're going to do? And so we had our engineer layout, basically, of the most efficient plan to get as many lots as possible. When Stonehenge was developed, lot sizes, I think this is right, Mr. Falk, could be R1, you could do a 10,000 square foot lot.
That's correct.
Well, you've changed the zoning where we can't do a Stonehenge. We could mix housing. It's only, R1 is only 15,000. So we have to work what we have to work or dealt with. As far as traffic is always an issue whenever we do rezonings. We appreciate that. Growing communities have traffic issues. Communities that aren't growing, not so much. Basically, homes appreciate in communities that are growing versus communities that are not growing. I know right now Market is a very congested street, but as we said, it is going to be widened to 4 and 5 lanes. If you look at Market from 55th to 30th Street, traffic flows pretty well, and it's quite dense. You don't have the tie-ups you have right now between Easton or between 55th and Apple Grove Road that you see today. What else was it? Comment there. Well, one thing about students and Mr. May and the superintendent, growing school systems are positive for homeowners, for property values. And it's important to educate young men and women. We know that. Of the 2 plans, it is proven fact, you can go online to the Sierra Club, as a matter of fact, and determine that the multifamily that we're suggesting for all three, for R3, the rentals are going to be in the median range of $1,000 a month. Those units are going to attract far less children to the school system than single-family homes. If the issue is what plan generates the most crowding or the most school children for plain local schools, it would be the R1 zoning, not the R1 combination R3. Bottom line is, and I know it's a matter of opinion, it's subjective. We can't foretell the future. But, Bill, you've been in the business for 50 years. I've been in the business almost 50 years. We're not always right in our predictions. But as we get older, we're stronger in our beliefs. And with Susie, who I know well and is a good friend, we just have a disagreement. Bill Lemon and I truly believe that the property owners adjacent to this site will have their property better protected, their values better protected, better enhanced with the plan that we're proposing than the plan that we will deal with if our zoning is turned down. Thank you.
Any questions by the board?
Mr. Deal, it's my understanding from the mailing piece that you sent out. Sorry, I apologize. My question is, it's clear from the mailing that you recently put out and that you stated at the beginning of the hearing, is what you're saying on record, you intend to purchase this property and develop it either way?
Yes, affirmative.
The discussion at the beginning about the covenant agreements, I think there's some confusion as to what those mean and what those do. Would you expand on that a little bit?
Expand on the covenants?
Deed restrictions?
Yes, we have deed covenants that we gave the trustees. I think they're on record. They're very specific covenants, trustee, on all segments, all the components. So we have a deed restrictions for the single family that back up against Wellington Hills, which we developed, and they're exactly alike or a little bit better than those current covenants for Wellington Hills, and likewise the same covenants for Stonehenge, to make sure that those houses, single family lots shown on that plan, mirror the values and the lot sizes with both Wellington Hills and Stonehenge. With the covenants for the R3 condos, the attached residential, as well as the villas, we're very specific in the sense that the number of units to be built and the fact that the garages will all be attached to the 8-unit buildings. We've been, as I think, as specific as we've ever been for any development we've done, Bill, in 40 years, to make sure that in case Bill and I get shot out here in the parking lot tonight and the zoning gets approved, that those units will be built according to the site plan.
Another question. You're going for an R3 designation, which is going to be specific, and the density levels under the R3 requirement is going to be far lower than what you're proposing in this plan. You're going to have to go in front of the Board of Appeals to get the approval for what you're proposing with the larger unit buildings. Is that correct?
That is correct.
What is your plan if the Board of Appeals turns that down?
We'd have to deal with 4-unit buildings. For the purposes of the people behind me, right now, as I understand, Denny, anything larger than a 4-unit building must be approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals. Is that correct?
That's correct. That would be a conditional use permit in the R3 district.
So we would be relying to meet, hopefully, those stipulations as stipulated in your Plain Township zoning book.
Bob, I know one of the questions that I think was directed, maybe it was even a comment, based upon what I would consider a business proposal, essentially SWOT analysis, what's the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, the threats of the two plans. It's clear, it's transparent communication. One of the emails that had come to us had to do with, well, why on Plan B, which is what you guys could technically do today and acquire property, why wouldn't there be deed restrictions and covenants there? Can you speak to that just very quickly?
Yes, that's a very good question. We will have covenants for whatever residential development we do. If it's entry level, there'll be covenants that will be applicable to the entry level homes.
Is just a follow-up question. What are some of the differences typically in the covenants between, say, an entry-level home on an all R1 versus the deed restrictions and covenants that you would build in if it was a combined R1 and R3?
Well, a very good question. On the, for one thing, on the size of homes in Wellington Hills and Stonehenge are of a certain size. Those sizes will be maintained by way of our covenants. For entry-level homes, the sizes will be less, and therefore the quality and the price will be less. We do, on our covenants for both Wellington as well as Stonehenge, we do have quality building materials that are mandated, certain amount of brick and stone, those kind of things. When you have a development like Diamond Estates or Pebblebrook or Lexington Farms, you don't have those type of quality requirements. I think the entry-level home marketed by Ryan Homes of Lexington right now is in the 170s. That's their starter house. Obviously, you can add to that by upgrading the home, but that's what they market as their starting price. I think Bill and I believe that the average price on what we're proposing is going to be in that $350,000 range. I think we all know that the sales will be slower. The market is not as deep, but we're willing to be patient, as we have in the past, and still accommodate what we believe is better for the adjacent neighbors.
Can you specifically address, just based upon visual representation of your proposed plan, and then again, what can happen there? Is it a safe assumption that additional infrastructure in Plan B from a roadway is going to be greater than that?
If I understand your question, certainly the public roadways that Plain Township would have to maintain is far more extensive in Plan B than in Plan A. A good amount of our roadways in Plan A, all the roadways except for the senior housing component that serves the R3, will be private roadways maintained by the developer, owner of the property, not on the taxpayer.
Joe, in regard to what Mr. Dehoff just presented as far as the roadways.
Can you turn the mic, please?
In regard to what was just testified to or spoken to by Mr. Dehoff about the roadways and the comparisons between the two, do you have anything you would like to offer or opinion to that as far as the maintenance, upkeep, the difference in costs between the two plans? I couldn't hear you, Mr. Jimmy. Would you like to expound on what the difference in the costs of the road maintenance and the amount of roads in the two plans, what the difference of those costs possibly could be? What's the average per mile? Per mile,
per mile to maintain right now with pavement is about $70,000 per mile. If you had to repave the road on an average day basis between salting and sweeping and maintaining the storm sewer system, it's probably closer to $5,000 a month for that per year.
It's about 75.
But I would not know the amounts until RP, because subdivision engineering is in charge of any building of that. That would not even come through my department until after subdivision engineering.
Mr. Dehoff, approximately how much roadway in both plans are you proposing? That the township would have to maintain?
You know, Lou, I don't have that number. Certainly there's more public roadway with Plan B than Plan A, but I haven't calculated that amount.
As far as...
Can I say just a follow-up to that question on roadway? There was a concern about traffic generated from Edgewood into other neighborhoods, and it just should be noted that on the multifamily plan, providing the public safety forces agree with us in Plain Township, that none of the R3 ground from the condos, the attached residential, or the villas, none of that traffic will be permitted to go into the residential single-family subdivision part of the development. It'll all be directed on a private road out to Market Avenue.
The senior living that you're proposing in this plan, if my memory serves me correct, you also proposed that at the time in the sanctuary development before and after it was taken into the city of North Canton. Is there any reason why that didn't get developed there?
No, we're looking at a couple of different plans now, but there's been no, just kind of waiting for the market. I think Lou, on this particular plan, the reason we don't have any definite ideas on the senior housing, we're really kind of waiting to see what the market does. Right now, we anticipate this will be the last thing to be developed, and it could be, frankly, 7 to 10 years out. We have recently developed a one-story, 42-unit memory care / assisted living facility. We opened one up in Cuyahoga Falls about a year ago. We just opened up one in Worcester. This is something we're considering for here, but we don't have any definite plans. It's something that, frankly, we're going to push out until much later in the development cycle.
I mean, is your intentions to build it here and there if approved? Inside the city and here, or just, are you looking at this property ahead of the other one because it's, in your opinion, better suited?
This will probably be the latter one to be developed. Is that fair to say?
Mr. DeHoff, I've got one other question, just because I've been posed this question when we knocked doors to the recent hearings. If this board was to reject the proposed R1 and R3 plan, is there any risk potential of going to the city of North Canton and asking for them to annex the property to where their planning commission smaller lots is the first half of that? And I guess the second part of that is from a statement aspect, and this is just for concern for the residents, whereas we will allow input from even the outside residents at the later part. If something like this could happen, we assure you your voice probably will not be heard. So back to the question, is there any risk or plans, should R1 be your only option, to look to the city of North Canton?
Our plan is to work with Plain Township on this development. We've worked with Plain Township before on developments that we have done. They're on the record. And our plan is to do that on this property as well.
Have you approached the city of North Canton or had conversations with them about this property?
Pardon me, I didn't hear that.
Have you approached or had conversations with officials in the city of North Canton about this property?
Maybe in casual conversation, but nothing formal. We have had no meetings on a formal basis. Our plan, again, I want to reassert, our plan again is to work within Plain Township on this piece of property.
Just so happens we're going to work with North Canton City in Plain Township. You can reword it. You can reword everything.
Okay, we have no further questions, Mr. DeHoff. Mr. Falk?
There's approximately, I did a rough scale of the plant, and the Plan A was approximately 6,300 lineal feet of road, and Plan B had over 9,000.
Chief, do you have any just general comments? I know some of the individuals in the crowd that addressed the board spoke to concerns with the call rates, response, and so forth like that, just for the sake of addressing those.
As with any development, whether it's residential or commercial, obviously there's an impact on any service, whether it's the road or fire, EMS, or law enforcement. Accessibility to us is important. Time is life to us, and obviously, we'll address issues as we've done in the past when things come for the zoning, and we sit down with zoning, and we sit down and discuss those as far as accessibility to residential areas, whether it be the R1s or the R3s, to make sure that we have access into those areas where our response time is limited as much as possible, so we can, do what we need to do as far as life-saving efforts. So, we've always worked closely with developers, and whether it be commercial or residential.
Yeah. As far as we'll do closing comments before we'll do a roll call vote. As far as I know, it's a passionate issue for everybody who immediately surrounds the area. There's no doubt, otherwise you wouldn't have turned out to three different meetings. The first zoning hearing where it was, after the plan was denied, it never come to our board because McKinley Development wished to pull that and attempt in their best of efforts to address some of those concerns and those which were outlined in this multi-page letter. I will tell you that as a trustee and having shared it with folks who aren't immediately adjoining the property, that live in the township, live out of the township, this is a business letter. This spells out explicitly why Plan A was proposed, the benefits, and essentially some of the benefit that was going to be put into that plan to help appease. Plan B, and I know you all think it's offensive, but that is the reality of what can happen. Maybe it doesn't have the trees in it, but it's reality. The numbers, outside of changing, say, the valuation on, say, the condo / apartments and so forth, I do know based upon the valuations that were done here and checking with the auditor's office, if this all was to happen as presented here, it's accurate. So when you compare the two plans, the $500,000 difference between the two plans is real. I say that because what does that mean as it relates to the concerns on how's this going to impact our infrastructure, our delivery of services? Well, we've heard, just based upon the estimates of the linear feet in Plan B, which is what they can do, there will be less dollars to maintain that infrastructure, whether that be the roads or whether that's providing the fire, the EMS, and the policing services. Our responsibility, obviously, is to address the concerns of the residents, but understand it's this board's holistic responsibility to not just represent and address the immediate 120 property owners, but that of all 40,000 residents in the township. So whether it's this parcel of property here or whether it's over by Diamond Park, this board has a responsibility to take a look at the plan holistically. As far as with respect to, the market valuation, I think there should be just as much concern about, if you go the route of single family homes, more than likely it could be that $170,000 to $210,000 entry level. What will that mean to your existing property valuations? I realize that the example that was given of $145 per square foot to $100 per square foot. Let's face the fact, the market, everybody felt an impact there. So those are variables that we need to put into proportion here when taking a look. I will say this: I take serious my responsibility to represent the interests and needs of the township and its resident, whether it be those that are immediately adjoining or abutting the property. So the emails that have come in over the last 2 days, significantly, along with the calls, they haven't been ignored. I apologize if I haven't responded to every one of them, just because of my full-time job, but I can assure you every last one of them was read, and that's why I've got a ton of notes up here. As far as with respect to our safety services and how they would be impacted, every time we get new hotels going out where we've got a newer senior assisted living facility in at Whitewood. We're going to see those call rates go up. So when I take a look at this from an infrastructure and maintenance cost, there's going to be costs either way, no matter how this goes. In fact, it's probably going to be more significant in the latter plan that can happen, but I'm just cautioning, what the predisposed notion that you may have arrived at, because single-family homes at the lower dollar value, where they've probably got a larger market, are probably inclined to move quicker. So there's still going to be that impact, if not a greater impact, quicker on the infrastructure, the roads, and our safety services, and so forth. So I appreciate the fact that everybody's taking the time to come out tonight, voice your concerns on this. To Mr. Dehoff, Mr. Lemon, we appreciate the time that you have taken in revising the plan. There are distinguishable differences to those. So I just want to let you know the efforts are noted. I will note, though, every bit is likewise. Every concern that's been expressed is being taken into consideration before I cast my vote here.
Well, can you hear me? Let's put it this way. I've been 18 years for me, long time, trustee. My mother's deceased, but I'm a mother's boy. I was a mom's boy. And my mother and I used to have the greatest conversations, very intense. And I listened to my mom. She's a very wise woman. When I took this job as a township trustee, she told me, always listen to your residents. They may not agree all the time with what you tell them, but listen to your residents. 18 years I've been trying to listen to my residents. As a trustee, I've always tried to resolve a problem. I have to call a road superintendent. He knows how I am. Let's try to fix it. What can we do to make it work for residents? I always try to resolve a problem to make sure that both parties were happy. So I took that always into consideration. My mother said, listen to your residents. And I've listened to our residents tonight. Just a little history of me with some of these, because this isn't my first rodeo with these. We had a lot of zone changes in front of me. But one particular, and a couple particular that I would mention, to try to show the consistency of myself. June 11th, this is the Cairo property on Market. This was an RR zone, B1. They were asking for an R3, 23.8 acres. Denied by the commission, denied by the trustees. February 11th, for RRB1, again, R3 was asked, 23.8 acre, denied, commission denied, trustees. February 16th of 2005, we had RRB1, they wanted to change to an R6, 133.4 acres, denied, commission, denied, trustees. When I'm asked upon a zone change, I take it to heart, and I stand at those properties, sometimes hours, decide, does it work? Does it fit? Tell myself that. So along with asking myself, does it fit, does it work, and listening to the residents, you can see that 3 times it was denied. Now here's one that goes reverse though. This is on a Martindale resident at 3742. This gentleman was asking for an R3. Listen to the residents. It's my job. But the surrounding area on Martindale Road, north R3, south R3, east R2, the only west R1 was the golf course. I had friends, people that I knew on that street on Martindale Road. And my decision again, when I stood and stared at the property, what is best Is it going to suit? Well, I went against the residents on that because it was surrounded already by R3. And I upset some people on that one, but I had to make the proper decision. And there was a gentleman who didn't speak to me for 2 years. Someone actually moved from that development. In this particular situation, does it fit? I don't believe it does. I've listened to my residents, over 100 people here. I've listened. I have to ask myself, when I stood there, does it fit? I think you have my answer. I don't believe it does. And I listen, and I will take that into consideration for all my life. Thank you.
Mr. Gevasis.
Mr. Dehop, Mr. Lemon, everybody, thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for conducting yourself and speaking in a professional manner. Like all the board members said tonight, this is a very emotional issue, especially to those that this directly involves. Over 21 years I've been a trustee. We don't get crowds like this unless there's something directly affecting somebody in their own backyard. And this is the same case this evening. Because if you come to any of our other board meetings, if there's nothing going on like this, we got 2 or 3 people because everything seems to be going along pretty smoothly, quietly, and nothing's really affecting anybody really, truly, directly to this magnitude. And this is an important issue. I also take this very seriously. Whenever somebody comes to this board and asks for a zoning change, we put great thought and effort into our zoning map as the way it currently exists. We get very few zoning change requests in Plain Township over the last, I'm guessing, 10 to 12 years. We've had very few. And I seem to think that is because our zoning text is correct in its exact statement. But when somebody comes before us, they have to prove the burden that the existing zoning in place is incorrect or it's incompatible with the use of the surrounding properties. That is the main thing that we have to take into account. Aside from that, I'm elected, as well as Scott now, to represent you folks. And like Mr. Haas also said, we're also elected to represent the other 35,000 people in the community equally. Making these decisions, we have to balance what is not only going to be the effect of the adjacent property owners, but what is going to be the overall effect on the entire community. Mr. Haas touched on some of those points, and I'm not going to repeat those because I think it was quite clear and they were very well stated. Some questions were raised during this hearing about apartments and apartment style living. I think everybody initially, the entire time that I've sat on this board, I've never had one person come into one of my meetings and say, "Hey Lou, we want the apartment buildings behind us." There's a fear there. There's a natural fear. It's a humanistic characteristic. People are afraid of it. I'm elected to represent you, but I'm going to offer you my own feelings towards that, along those fears. Many people in this audience may know or not know. I was elected living in an apartment as one of your elected officials several years ago. I lived in that apartment building because my circumstances only allowed me to. I didn't live there because I necessarily wanted to. My circumstances at that time would only allow me. I lived in Kings Creek, very nice apartment complex. When I got married, I liked the neighborhood so much, I bought a house in that same development, directly behind the apartment building I lived in. I lived there for 12 years prior to moving to where I live now. I never had an issue with anybody in those apartment buildings as a resident of them and also as a property owner living adjacent to them. As a matter of fact, 12 years later, I sold my house for $40,000 more than I purchased it for. It didn't have any effect on my property value. There's a natural fear when it comes to those things. Now, my feelings aside, you residents overwhelmingly said you do not want this in your neighborhood. Clearly, I think if you look at both plans, one plan, I think from a cost services aspect is going to be more cost effective and less expensive to the township. And that would be Plan A. A single family development is going to be a bigger financial burden on the entire township. But you folks, as we represent, don't want this. I'm taking that into strong consideration against my own personal feelings, because that's what I was elected to do. But I don't want anybody to think, regardless of the outcome of this, that we are going to allow either one of these developments to take place in a manner that is going to be any way or put any of you in danger of your property values, your safety, or otherwise. We're going to make sure that we work with the developer to make sure it's done correctly. That's the way it's been done in the past, that's the way it will be done in the future, and it's the way it will always be as long as I'm a member of this board. Again, I appreciate everybody for coming here tonight, offering their opinions. And I'm taking everything that was said tonight into consideration before I make my vote.
Any further closing comments?
Which resolution? I'll make the following motion. Whereas a public hearing was held on the March 11, 2014 by the Plain Township Board of Trustees considering Amendment 555 to the Plain Township zoning resolution, whereas such hearing was properly and timely held pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 519.12. The Plain Township Board of Trustees has duly considered the nature of the amendment and the reasons therefore. The recommendation to the Plain Township Zoning Commission, the Stark County Regional Planning Commission, and the information provided by all and all interested persons. Now therefore be it hereby resolved by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to adopt the recommendation of the Zoning Commission for adopt.
Second.
Discussion.
Go ahead.
Eric, would it be improper at this point, because I know we've done this in the past, and I think you can attest to this. I'm going to ask before we vote, looking at the audience, what has been done before in the past about the covenants and the restrictions that were mentioned. We've done these with these developments in the past. If the audience wants us to move forward with this vote, we will. If the audience thinks there's anything that can be negotiated or amenable versus Plan A or Plan B, we can table this issue and reconvene. If not, we can go ahead and call a roll call and get it over with.
What ideas would you need for the table? Where would the discussion take place? You say right here?
We've done that with Saratoga Hills, we've done it with other developments in the past beforehand. But I'm going to offer the residents the opportunity, if they think there's something they want to negotiate along the lines of Plan B with the developer, or...
I can tell you what we've done in the past is worked with the developer, as opposed to, I mean, if you, it's kind of a free-for-all, it can become quick.
No, that's along that line, that's right, you're correct.
Yeah, so in the past, what we've done is if that's something that the developer's amenable to, putting together a list of those kind of covenants that would go into it, you table it before for a meeting to then, the next meeting, be able to display those covenants. But that's completely up to you guys.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Gevasis?
Yes.
Mr. Hawk?
Yes. That's it.
Motion.
The recommendation for denial by the zoning commission has carried 3 to 0. 8:41. Discussion, roll call.
That's the end that.
Yes.
So now, and no more.